What if the love of your life was tied to the one thing you were told to never forgive? Their first messages felt simple, but every word carried excitement. Smiles came easily. Study sessions felt lighter. Even the smallest aches felt poetic, as if their hearts were already learning each other's rhythm. That first walk together was quiet, warm, and gentle. Two souls beginning to recognize something unfamiliar but beautiful. They slowly opened their worlds to each other. Family, childhood, dreams, loneliness. Everything was shared with care. He spoke about freedom with longing. The other listened with understanding. Between soft laughter and honest silence, a deeper connection quietly grew. That night, in hesitant voices and beating hearts, they realized the truth. It wasn't just curiosity anymore. It was something real. They didn't rush it. They simply promised to meet again, and smiled as if the future had just whispered their names. Morning light fell gently on their faces. Time felt slower. The world felt distant. Even teasing felt softer, wrapped in affection. For a moment, nothing existed but comfort, warmth, and the quiet happiness of being together. Introducing him to family felt like opening a fragile part of the heart. Nervous smiles, careful words, guarded concern. Yet beneath it all was trust growing slowly, bravely. It was no longer just a secret feeling. It was becoming part of real life. The truth about the brother came with silence and heavy emotion. A childhood loss that never fully healed. No tears fell, yet the sadness lived quietly in the air. Some memories never leave, they only learn to stay quiet. On the open road, dreams felt closer. First beaches, first trips, first freedom. They spoke of traveling the world, not as a fantasy, but as a shared future. For now, only one journey mattered. The one they were already on together. As they arrived in the darkness, waiting lights welcomed them like fate itself. Relief, excitement, and quiet love blended into a single moment. The journey had only just begun, but their hearts already knew the direction. The evening was warm, and the smell of grilled food filled the air. Carol had prepared everything with care. Fish on the grill, fruit, salad, and a full table waiting like a quiet celebration of reunion. It had been years since she last cooked like this, years since she had to learn how to care for herself alone. The house carried both comfort and memory. Benny tried to help, moving between plates and nervous smiles, while Christopher watched quietly, wanting everything to be just right. Small jokes floated through the air, light on the surface but heavy underneath. Beneath the laughter were years of distance, unspoken feelings, and the fragile hope that this visit might heal something broken long ago. The evening settled into warmth and gentle teasing. Carol observed everything with sharp, knowing eyes, Benny's blushes, Christopher's quiet devotion. She saw their closeness long before either of them fully understood it themselves. There was approval in her gaze, but also the unspoken weight of her past. Later, as the night deepened, the conversation softened, and truths began to surface. Benny finally revealed a long-hidden memory from his teenage years. A quiet, secret crush he once carried alone, known to no one else. A simple act of anonymous affection had once made another boy smile for an entire day, and for Benny, that small happiness had meant everything. It was an innocent memory, tender and untouched by the pain that would later define his life. What began as warmth slowly shifted into something heavier when a truth long buried resurfaced. Carol's past crossed into Benny's present in the most devastating way. The accident that took Davy's life was no longer a shadow of the past. It stood alive in front of them. The woman who now welcomed Benny into her home was the same woman who had unknowingly taken his brother's life. The truth shattered the fragile peace of the vacation. Benny's world collapsed inward as memories he had barely understood as a child resurfaced with new meaning. The sound of his mother's scream, the stillness of his brother's body, the silence that followed. It all returned at once. He struggled to breathe, to stand, to remain in that house filled with warmth that now felt unbearable. The past had followed him across state lines. The vacation that once promised freedom now felt like a trap of memory and grief. The decision to leave was quiet but final. Excuses were made for early departures, for schedules and exams, but everyone knew it was something far deeper. Pain always finds its way back to the surface when it is ignored for too long. When the confrontation finally came, it was raw and unforgiving. Anger clashed with grief. Love collided with betrayal. What had begun as a hopeful escape ended in heartbreak. Words were spoken that could never be taken back. Accusations, sorrow, regret. Everything poured out at once. Two hearts that once felt inseparable now stood on opposite sides of a truth too painful to survive. Benny returned home carrying more than luggage. He carried memory, loss, and a love that had ended before it was truly allowed to live. His mother saw the pain immediately. She tried to reach him, to understand, but some wounds cannot be shared easily, even with the ones who love us most. When the truth finally surfaced, it broke open another layer of grief. Names once buried returned. Lives once separated became painfully connected. The past, long avoided, finally demanded to be faced. And still, despite all the pain, one truth remained unshaken. The love they shared had been real. But sometimes, love is not enough to survive the weight of destiny. The unanswered questions between them had never truly faded. The pain of what was left unsaid still lived quietly between their hearts. Guilt and longing moved side by side. Both of them missing what they once were, both of them hating the distance that now existed. When Benny finally appeared again, it stirred confusion and tension on all sides. The gathering that should have been simple and joyful was layered with discomfort, hidden wounds, and unspoken fears. Smiles were forced. Pride was shown for Becca's moment in the spotlight. Yet beneath the applause, hearts were unsettled. Benny's father watched him with quiet concern. His words came from fear, not anger, from a desperate need to protect his son from more pain. He spoke about love as something that should be chosen carefully, not only with the heart, but with reason. Benny listened, but his heart refused logic. Love had already taken its place inside him. What followed was not rebellion, but exhaustion. Running had not made the pain disappear. Staying only made it louder. Benny's anger was not just toward his parents, but toward the helplessness of loving someone when the world seemed determined to tear them apart. That night, seeking only escape, he found temporary refuge away from home. But distance did not bring peace. His family felt the emptiness immediately. Fear replaced anger. His sister's tears became a quiet echo of everything that was breaking. When comfort finally came, it did not arrive as peace. It arrived as confrontation. The past stood face to face with the present, and neither was willing to step aside. Old memories, once buried for survival, began to resurface with unbearable clarity. What had once been an accident returned as a living wound that refused to close. The truth was simple, yet unbearable. The past was no longer behind them. It now lived in the same room, in the same breathing space, in the same love that had once felt so safe. Benny could not stay. He could not listen. He could not forgive. Not yet. Fear, grief, and heartbreak collided inside him until nothing felt stable anymore. Then Christopher came, not as a lover, but as someone desperate to make things right. He came carrying responsibility, not defense. He came knowing he might be rejected, yet refusing to remain silent while everything fell apart. Not everything can be fixed by courage. Not every wound will close with truth. But sometimes, facing the pain is the only way forward, even if it means standing in the middle of everything that once destroyed you. With trembling hands and a heavy heart, she found the courage to go to the one place she had avoided for years. The grave was quiet. Fresh flowers rested there in silence. Regret filled every breath she took. The past rose before her, clear and unforgiving. She whispered apologies that had lived inside her for a lifetime. When she stood before Lenora, there were no defenses left. Only guilt, memory, and truth. She spoke of the accident, of the years spent reliving it, of the way remembrance was the only way she had learned to survive the weight of it. She spoke of the boys, of how fate had tied their lives together in the most unexpected way, of how rare their bond was, of how deeply sorry she truly was. Lenora listened, wounded but composed. Her forgiveness did not come easily. Some pain cannot be erased by words, no matter how sincere. She asked the woman to leave, not in anger, but in protection of the fragile strength she had spent years rebuilding. When she turned to her husband, the memories returned like echoes from another lifetime. The day they lost Davy, the silence that followed, the way grief had nearly torn them apart, the promise they once made to hold on when everything felt impossible. That promise still lived between them. But now there was a new fear, the fear of losing Benny. To lose him felt like losing Davy all over again. The thought hollowed her chest. Yet she knew her son was no longer a child. He was growing, choosing, loving in ways she could not control. And love, even when it hurts, must be faced. When the call finally came, it carried hesitation and hope in equal measure. They asked him to come home, not to argue, not to judge, but to share a meal, to be together, to try. After a long pause, he agreed. That evening, the house filled again with voices, footsteps, and cautious warmth. The table was set with care. Food was prepared with nervous devotion. No one knew exactly what the night would bring, only that it would matter. They gathered not as a perfect family, but as a wounded one still trying to heal. And sometimes that is how forgiveness begins.